Good evening. I would like to call the annual reorganization meeting to order at 6:05 PM. If everyone will please join me for the pledge of allegiance. Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The fire exit is to your side in case we need it, or the marked areas. At this time, I'd like to turn the meeting over to the district clerk. Mrs. Rumsey.
I'm first going to do a roll call. Mrs. Giller,
Here.
Mr. Jackson,
Here.
Mrs. Carey,
Here.
Mrs. Snyder,
Here.
Mrs. Gendron,
Here.
Mr. Paradis,
Here.
Mr. Giroux.
Here.
At this time, I would like to open the floor for nominations for President of the Board of Education for the 24-25 school year. Do I have a motion to open the floor?
Motion. I'll second it.
I just did that backwards, but okay. Mrs. Giller,
Yes.
Mr. Jackson.
Yes.
Mrs. Carey,
Yes.
Snyder,
Yes.
Gendron,
Yes.
Paradis.
Yes.
Mr. Giroux.
Yes.
The floor is now open for nominations for the President of the Board of Education for the 24-25 school year. Do I have nominations?
I nominate Nadia Carey.
Margaret Keller, Nadia Carey. Are there any others? With that, I will close the floor for nominations. Do I have a motion to close the floor?
Make a motion.
I'll second it.
Mrs. Gendron, Mrs. Giller,
Yes.
Mr. Jackson,
Yes.
Mrs. Carey,
Yes.
Mrs. Snyder,
Yes.
Mrs. Gendron,
Yes.
Ms. Paradis,
Yes.
Mr. Giroux.
Yes.
With that, Mrs. Carey is elected President of the Board of Education for the 24-25 school year. I need a motion. I don't really know why, but can I have a motion?
I'll second it.
Thank you, Mrs. Gendron. Mrs. Giller,
Yes.
Mr. Jackson,
Yes.
Mrs. Carey,
Yes.
Mrs. Snyder,
Yes.
Mrs. Gendron,
Yes.
Ms. Paradis,
Yes.
Mr. Giroux.
Yes.
Mrs. Carey, I now turn the meeting back over to you.
Thank you, Mrs. Rumsey.
You're welcome.
Okay, we now need to elect a vice president. Do I have a motion to open the floor for nominations for the office of vice president of the Board of Education for the 24-25 school year?
Make a motion.
I'll second it. Thank you.
Mrs. Gendron,
Mrs.
Mrs. Giller,
Yes.
Mr. Jackson, Mrs. Carey,
Yes.
Mrs. Snyder,
Yes.
Mrs. Gendron,
Yes.
Ms. Paradis,
Yes.
Mr. Giroux.
Yes.
Okay. The floor is now open for nominations for vice president. Do I have a nomination?
I'll nominate Margaret Keller.
I'll second that.
Mrs. Gendron, Mrs. Giller, Carey, Mrs. Giller. Okay,
If there are no other nominations for the office of vice president, I'll close the floor. Can I have a motion to close the floor?
I'll make a motion.
Thank you.
I'll second it.
Thank you.
Mrs. Giller,
Yes.
Mr. Jackson,
Yes.
Mrs. Carey, Mrs. Snyder,
Yes.
Mrs. Gendron,
Yes.
Paradis.
Yes.
Mr. Giroux.
Yes.
Mrs. Giller.
Congratulations, Mrs. Giller. You've done your way. Thank you.
Can we just do one more motion, please?
Absolutely. Can we have a motion that Mrs. Giller be elected? Excuse me, I got a little ahead of myself.
I'll second it.
Thank you.
Snyder, Mrs. Gendron, Mrs. Giller,
Yes.
Mr. Jackson,
Yes.
Mrs. Terry,
Yes.
Mrs. Snyder,
Yes.
Mrs. Gendron,
Yes.
Paradis.
Yes.
Mr. Giroux.
Yes.
Okay, I'm going to come and administer oaths of office. Our newly elected president, Mrs. Terry.
I know.
Mrs. Terry,
Yes.
would you please raise your hand and state the following, please?
I, Nadia Carey, do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of New York, and that I will faithfully discharge the duties of President of the Board of Education for the 2024-2025 school year according to the best of my ability.
So much. Please sign your name. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. Mrs. Giller? It's your turn, ma'am. Sign, so you're gonna raise your hand and you're gonna, read that.
I, Margaret Giller, do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of New York, and that I will faithfully discharge the duties of Vice President of the Board of Education for the 2024-2025 school year, according to the best of my ability.
And while Margaret's signing, we're just going to skip ahead so there's not a lot of movement. The next thing we do is appoint a district clerk. So may I have a motion that the Board of Ed appoints Mary Rumsey to the position of district clerk? Stay here, please. For the 2024-25 school year? Make a motion. Thank you. Thank you. Mrs. Giller.
Yes.
Mr. Jackson?
Yes.
Mrs. Carey, yes. Mrs. Snyder?
Yes.
Mrs. Gendron? Yes. Mrs. Paris?
Yes.
Mr. Giroux?
Yes.
Mrs. Rumsey, I'd like to administer your oath of office.
Well, thank you.
Please read that.
I, Mary Rumsey, do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of New York, and I will faithfully discharge the duties of the district clerk for the Board of Education for the 2024-2025 school year, according to the best of my abilities.
Thank you very much. Congratulations on your appointment.
Thank you so much. Let's just skip for a moment, if you wouldn't mind. Mr. Jackson, it's your turn.
Congratulations to the newly re-elected members, Mr. Jackson, Mrs. Snyder. You're gonna sworn in.
Raise your hand, please. Thank you.
I, Richard Jackson, do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States, the Constitution of New York, and that I will faithfully discharge the duties of 2024-25 Board of Education member,
To the best of your abilities.
according to the best of my ability.
Awesome. Please sign your name.
There's a really big space between the one and the.
Yeah, there is a bit. Mrs. Snyder, your turn, my friend. So you're gonna start here.
I, Renee Snyder, do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of New York, and that I will faithfully discharge the duties of the 2024-2025 Board of Education member according to the best of my ability.
So your name's right there. Thank you so much.
Congratulations. Okay. Based on what just happened, does anybody not want to move forward with a consent agenda and vote individually on all of the items?
I would prefer to continue with consent.
Any board members have any discussion of the agenda items on the reorganization meeting agenda? Community discussion of agenda items for the reorganization agenda. Mrs. Rumsey? Can I have perhaps some assistance on number 7?
We just have to, read it out loud, Mrs. Perry.
I understand. Please focus your attention for a moment on item 7A, the official undertaking. That the Board of Education bonds employees through the use of a faithful performance blanket bond per Commissioners Regulation 170.
Perfect.
Thank you. And we please have a motion that the Board of Education adopts the following resolutions of the July 10th, 2024 reorganization agenda. Items 6A, 1 through 24, 6B, 1 through 18, 6C, 1 through 10, and item 7A.
Make a motion.
Thank you.
I'll second that.
Thank
Mrs. Giller.
Yes.
Mr. Jackson.
Yes.
Mrs. Carey.
Yes.
Mrs. Snyder.
Yes.
Mrs. Gendron.
Yes.
Paradis.
Yes.
Mr. Giroux.
Yes.
Comments or questions about annual things not on the agenda? Comments or questions, items not on the reorganization agenda? All right, at this time, I would entertain a motion to adjourn the reorg meeting at 6:14 and enter into our regular business meeting.
I'll make a motion.
Thank you.
I'll second it.
Thank you.
Mrs. Giller.
Yes.
Jackson.
Yes.
Mrs. Carey.
Yes.
Mrs. Snyder.
Yes.
Mrs. Gendron.
Yes.
Paradis.
Yes.
Mr. Giroux.
Yes.
Oh, I didn't.
All
I'm
set?
sorry. Yes.
Thank you very
Sorry.
much for all of that. Okay, moving on to the official business meeting. The emergency exits are still in the same place. Do we need to do a roll call?
Yes. We don't have to do the pledge unless you want to. Do you want to? Of course we can.
Let's just move to the roll call, please. Thank you.
It's
Miss-
cooling down in here now, have you noticed?
Yes, actually, about 10th Street cooler. Did you get your text asking?
Mrs. Giller.
Yes.
Mr. Jackson. Snyder. Gendron.
Yes.
Ms. Paredes.
Yes.
Mr. DeRose.
Yes.
Mrs. Carey.
Here, the question was, are you here?
What was your answer?
Yes.
At this time, we'd like to turn it over to Superintendent O'Shea for district report.
Well, thank everyone. It's been a while since we've been together and we have a capital project update. And this evening Turner is going to be primarily leading the update. So I'm going to turn it over to you.
Hi, everybody. Patty Murray, Turner Construction, and most of you know me by now. So we're just gonna give you an update now. It switches over to Turner's only presentations as opposed to the architect now that we're in construction phase. So first we'll give you an update on stage one. The roof at Abram Lansing Network was completed. The playground work was completed and the elevator work for Harmony Hill and Van Dyke is scheduled to take place this summer. Currently, we're on track for completing both of those this summer. If something changes, we'll let you know. Regarding Abram Lansing, we just wanted to talk a little bit about the leaks that happened there most recently when there was a significant heavy downpour. We talked about it this morning with the polling law.
Yeah, so, as was reported during the heavy rainstorm. Well, on all that consensus.
Thank you for standing up.
So, what we've been researching is, after the past heavy rainstorm, that water had percolated up through some classroom sinks and through floor drain in the bathroom area. And also some perch water came through the ground into the crawl space areas, basement areas. So we are investigating that further. There's a couple different issues going on. The issue with the water coming up through the drains. The pipes that leave the building, you have a storm and a sanitary. Typically, they're separated. They do combine when they leave the building. And so the storm and the sanitary kind of backs up when it's heavy rain. We're going to talk with the engineers, get them back involved, see what can be done in terms of correcting that, if separating the drains or putting in some sort of backflow preventer system. We're going to look further into the water that's pushing through the walls and look at waterproofing the foundations.
Anybody have questions for phase one?
There were questions about the roof as well, the drains.
Drains as the scuppers and not the.
Yep, so as part of the project, all the primary drains were maintained as part of the project, so there's no fewer primary drains. There are a number of scuppers on the west side of the building, or previously there were scuppers on the west side of the building. Basically, those are little holes in the parapet, where when the water doesn't go down the primary drains, it fills up, hits the level of those scuppers and then goes out and down. So those have been an issue, a historic issue where those were leaking. The way they were constructed, they kind of dropped down under, they were at the roof surface, but they dropped down into the wall, down through the wall. So it was, without deconstructing the wall all the way down to get those, there was no good way to flash those in. So the decision was made through the roof project last year, fill those in and add in overflow drains. So that's what occurred. So 2 overflow drains on that main part of the roof installed. Those, instead of being piped down into your sanitary storm system, they go up the exterior of the wall and
So we don't believe that had any impact on the,
that wouldn't have impacted water coming up through the sinks. And it would be less water that was going into the ground. So that's really not an issue. Then we can see that, again, we're gonna have the engineers look at it. So,
Just to add that the overflow scuppers and the drains that Paul mentioned, those are belt suspenders, right? Those are not intended to be a roof drainage system. Those are in case your primary roof drains were clogged for some reason. So those drains daylight, right, outside the building. So if you're down below in a rain event and you see water coming out the scuppers, that means that the primary drain blocked. So those are intended to take the weight of the water off the roof in case your roof drain gets clogged. So by changing that, we remove the wall scuppers and put in the drains. It doesn't impact what actually goes down the main drain. It just impacts how the emergency situation would be seen. So they're kind of like two separate.
The additional work that's been identified or potentially identified, is that going to be considered for funding purposes, part of this capital project? Are we going to redirect, or is there enough built in to take care of that? Sounds like a significant amount of work is going to be needed.
We're currently under budget. But we don't have any estimates yet for the work that potentially will need to be done. Ideally, it would be able to be covered through the capital fund. But we don't have the estimates yet for me to.
When do you think the engineers will come back with?
within a couple weeks time, we'll have a pretty good handle on what our approach will be.
Other questions about that, please?
When will, I mean, the engineers will come back with their plan, and then what is the plan going forward? Like, when are you proposing to have this done with, I mean, school starts in September, is it?
Well, I think it really depends on what the solution is.
Uh-huh.
One of the things we're looking at is if we can put backflow preventers on to keep that water from backing up the pipes. So that would be something that could probably be done pretty quickly.
Okay,
If we determine, something like the foundation, if we have to open up a section of the exterior wall to waterproof, that's substantially more invasive project than, if there's a way, we have to just divert water outside. And so maybe there's a low spot there where water's coming in and getting in. So I think it really depends on what the solution is. But I think the intent would be get it done as soon as possible.
With special attention to the classroom areas that we might have.
exactly.
Are there any other questions about phase one? For phase two, so this is the updated block schedule. So we had a block schedule that originally went out to bid for all the contractors. Most of it stayed the same, but a little bit of the work shifted. I think the major thing to point out would be the fire alarm. So the electrician was having difficulty getting manpower. They struggled to get enough. For instance, at the high school, they intended to have 6 people there working on just a fire alarm, and the max that they've been able to get there at times been 4. So that has kind of set them back. So they gave us a new schedule for all of their fire alarm work at each of the schools. And that's included in here within this most recent copy of the schedule. But the high school, it started in April, and they're expecting to have to go through all till the end of January until they're finished at the high school. So,
Can I just ask,
yeah,
so that was a bid that went out to an electrical company for the fire alarm?
yes.
And in it said they were to have so much staffing to have it done?
Yeah, so we
On a
did show
schedule?
showed fire alarm work going consistently from the beginning through to the end, and showing them doing it second shift whenever they couldn't do the work over the summer. So that is still the plan. They're still doing all the fire alarm within the time frame that we showed. They're just adjusting at schools, like they're gonna be at one school longer than they thought they were, type of thing. Most of them are staying within the same time frame. The high school is the one that has the most work, so that's the one that is suffering the most for the organization.
And does this impact any, as far as the fire alarms being replaced, if they're still in service and
Yes,
they're,
the whole system stays active and working until the new system goes in place. They have to have a system going at all times. So they'll take the old one offline and put the new one online. That's a time frame that we have to work out because it won't happen over the summer. We have to coordinate when they'll have enough downtime to do that without having.
Are there vendors for each of the new system and old system where there's an overlap and potentially
No,
expense
we
driven?
currently use alarm and suppression, and it's still gonna be alarm and suppression that does your firewall. Any other questions about the fire alarm? So alumni field, some of the work that we completed was, demo of the existing site features, drainage at the field event and over at the hillside. And then, at the field events, they installed the base stone and got their compaction tests completed. And the new athletic light poles have all been installed. Some of the work that's in progress or upcoming is finishing the athletic light connections, cuts to the field, milling the track. They've actually most recently completed most of that. And then the site storm drainage. Some of the constraints that we've had with regards to alumni field was the unforeseen condition with that rubberized asphalt layer. And whether when there's heavy rainfall, it impacts their schedule and being able to stay. And then also if the ground is still too wet, it impacts their work even the following day. So we have been tracking all of that. Currently, the schedule that we have based on what really happened with the rubberized asphalt layer impacting them so far, they're looking at approximately 3-week delay. We've challenged them to kind of come back and look for opportunities to pull that back. We see that maybe some of the work that they're doing, if there are ways that they can get more manpower, increase their crew size and get some of the work taking place simultaneously. So we're looking at that and they're going to revise that schedule and get it to us. At our facilities meeting, we did let Jeff know currently he has his first football game scheduled for September 20th. We think that as of right now, that can still stay for that date. But he did have a soccer game scheduled for the 5th of September, which we know that can't happen. So we talked to Jeff about rescheduling that one. And we're going to keep him informed if anything else comes up. But one of the other biggest concerns is the weather in August. If we have a lot of rain in August, that could really cause us an issue because after they do the asphalt around the new track, that has to do an off-gassing process for, I think it's like 14 days. And then before they can put the top layer down. So if we have rain, that's really going to greatly impact that too. So we're just closely watching it.
And what were the hours of the men working again?
So they've been coming in early. They were starting at 6:30, but now they've been starting earlier. They've been here like at 6 and they stay until 2:30. Depending on what time they start.
Okay.
Any other questions? Okay, so regarding the high school, so they did complete pulling the new alarm wire on the 3rd and 2nd floor, and they're almost finished with the 1st floor. Constraints was the manpower that we talked about, and then there's also the unforeseen condition of the corridor by the auditorium where there's abatement that has to take place. There was fireproofing that was disturbed at some point up above the ceiling, and it was tested and shows that it has asbestos in it. So that has to get abated, which is going to happen in August. And then they'll be able to finish that last section on the 1st floor.
If I could just mention, so the abatement is going to happen after summer school, but before Regents review. Everyone can remain in the building because the building is going to be blocked off, but it is going to be less busy during that time.
And the building does get posted the 10 days prior to doing that work. So you'll see notices on the building at every doorway. Just letting you know that that work is happening. It shows you the date that it's going to start. So if anybody has any concerns, it tells you the start date.
Stacy, is that one of the required notifications to the public within our policy?
So the posting is the required, the principals. So that actually happened at Van Skype prior to summer programming that was planned. So staff were informed because they might have seen that, but it happened after the door was empty. Because this is going to be seen by some summer school parents, we can work with Laura to put out a parent square explaining the situation, just so they would know that it is okay that we can still, operate during that time. But the required notification is the
Physical posting on the building.
So we'll go further.
Yeah, I think it's important for us to make sure there's awareness out there. Those signs could be a little scary or intimidating,
Right.
so especially having your kids come in who already don't want to be.
Well, that's why we waited until after the program.
And then, so that's one of the other things I know, it's an important item is for the power washing, the cleaning of the front of the high school, to have that ready in time for when the field is done, and you guys have a ribbon cutting ceremony or whatever you decide to do. We have been pushing that with the contractor, so their original bid schedule showed that work taking place in the summer of 2025, so we've been pushing them hard to try to get that bumped up. So they're working on trying to locate manpower that come and do that. And as part of that, there's a mock-up, which is when they, show us what they're planning to do for that cleaning process, so we can see what they're doing, and the architect will approve what they're using for materials and the process that they're doing that. So we're looking to get that scheduled within a week or two, so that then we can give them the go-ahead and they can get the manpower. So they haven't committed to it yet, but they are trying to. And one of the other things I want to mention, so when we had our facilities meeting, something that was brought up was adding speakers to the field, because that's not currently something that's in the project. But that was brought up, so we have been talking about that with CSR, and they came up with some ideas, and we're gonna meet on site and look at what would be the best location to put those so that it doesn't impact neighbors, the least impact to make neighbors upset. So that's a walk site that we're gonna be on shortly. Yeah.
Stacy and I,
And, yeah.
there's a number of things we're walking through together, so we'll be there as well.
Any questions about the high school?
When the front is power washed, are the
The
columns going to be replaced at the same time?
No, so, we were going back and forth with them about the panels, that would be installed based on the specifications and, what the options that they have of what to provide. And we reviewed it with Laura a few times, and it was really decided that the best look that they would like is to have the same exact panel. So, you can't.
Is it going to be reinforced more so kids can't pick holes? I mean, you can't just put the same thing out there that,
Yeah.
to have it say,
Yes, the architect did come up with a design to make that more secure, for the bottom panels, because we're only replacing the bottom panels around all of the columns, which is where you're seeing the breakage rate. So that's gonna have more substantial backing behind it before they install the panels.
I would hope so, and I would actually like that reviewed before it's done.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, at the middle school, so we've started the science classrooms. We're still in the demo phase. There's quite a bit to take out, so that's what's taking place now. There'll be window refurbishment. There's 2 windows that get fully replaced. The front facade masonry work, it's brick repointing and some work done to help with the issue at the front where you're having the plaster fail. And we're doing a little bit of roof work, fire escapes. There's a hot water heater that's gonna get replaced. The second floor bathroom renovations are underway. That demo has already taken place. And then there'll be exterior ADA ramp for work.
Could I just talk about the water heater replacement just very briefly? So summer program ends July 8th. The water heater replacement will start on the 12th after summer programming. There will be still a classroom there. Cold water will be,
August, yeah.
yeah, I'm sorry, August 12th. Cold water will still be available, hand sanitizer, et cetera. So
So there'll still be running water in,
still be running,
building.
water can operate and, have some extra precautions for students.
Perfect. Will we announce that to the parents of whoever kids are
Yeah,
in?
it's one classroom and we'll work with that classroom with the,
Great.
with the teacher. to
Thank you.
let them know.
Any other questions about the
The timeline had mentioned plaster work this summer as well. Which area is that, or is that all pushed to next summer now?
No, so they already started the corridor plaster repair, so that we always plan for taking place this summer. At the entranceway though, that can't take place until all the front work gets done, the brick.
To make sure
and all
it
that.
actually, what we're doing outside works and we don't still have additional water.
Right, so they're gonna do all of that first, so that plaster work and that, I know it's the worst looking part, but unfortunately that can't take place until next summer, so they.
No, that's what I wanted to make sure. Thank you.
And then there is some plaster work also in the library, in the ceiling, which they weren't sure if they were doing that this summer or next summer. They're really pushing to get that done this summer also, but they haven't committed to that yet either, but they are trying to. Because we did buy the plaster repair in both summers, knowing that it was quite extensive and that there's other work associated that impacts it. Anything else about the middle school? Okay, for Harmony Hills, so they also started that fire alarm work. Harmony Hills is scheduled to be done by the end of August currently for their fire alarm. And then the upcoming work, the locker room, storage, resource room, so they have started all of that demo in there as well. There'll be window replacement and then elevator refurbishment. And then the exterior ADA curb ramp work takes place there also. Currently, the elevators are scheduled to start around July 22nd and will be completely done before school starts. Any questions about Harmony?
Well, just about the elevators, I know there were questions at the facility meeting about the interior.
Yes, they had a question about being able to protect because the interior is getting all redone. They want to be able to protect it when they're putting their carts in.
Right,
So we are looking at that. We talked about it this morning and the architect is looking at a couple different options to get a price for that.
okay, good. Thank you.
Okay, Van Skypes, that's actually what the elevator looks like at all the schools. It's the same interior design, but they will all get that same bumper that we're looking at providing. So the upcoming work will be to replace that main entrance door, the roof work. So they did come and they did reflashing of all of the skylights on that roof. And they did that little bit of abatement that they had to get done and they're working on the ladder. And the gym ceiling work follows that, so that would be, there's a little bit of plaster repair that has to happen on that, so then that whole gym ceiling gets painted, so we are also trying to get that scheduled for after, the summer program ends, so we're looking at that with the general contractor, and he said that probably actually works good for him, so that's what we're pushing for right now. The elevator refurbishment for this one, the material is a little bit later coming for Van Skyke. So they're thinking it will be later in July or even the beginning of August before they get started, but they're prepared to send a separate crew to do that one, so it doesn't impact them still being able to finish Harmony Hill before school starts. And then there's some electrical work, some emergency light power things that are happening throughout that school, and then the exterior ADA ramp curve is a little bit of work there also. Any questions about Van Skyke? Okay, and Abram Lansing, so we're doing exterior facade refurbishment, so we are going to the same color scheme, it'll just be much brighter. There'll be some ethos repairs that happen first, and then they'll do the painting. The library floor replacement and painting, so the carpet is coming out and VCT is going in. And then there's window screen replacements happening throughout the building, and then there's some HVAC control valve replacement, so that happens in the nurse suite area and a few other places.
Is there any consideration for sound deadening material if you're ripping the carpet out of the library?
I don't think that was brought up, was there?
Well, we're going back with the heat on it, so it'll have some absorption, not as much as carpet. But there's acoustic nail ceiling in there now for sound absorption. Sorry, we said that.
Any other questions? This is just a snapshot of where our contingency stands. So we have a couple different pots of money because there's the, or this is phase one. So this is just the phase one contingency, which we kept separate from phase two. So then you'll see the PCOs are for the Harmony Hill and Van Skyke to get benches added to the playground. And then we have Abram Lansing and the middle school with, what should be getting the elevator panel. So we're still in good shape with our contingency for phase one. Phase two, so that was, this slide we talked about at the facilities meeting, and it was decided it wasn't really.
There were all the change orders that you've
that
already
you guys have
either
already gone
approved
through. You've seen them all, I'm sure you don't want to hear about
or
them.
are approving this evening.
So, and then in phase two, we even have different pots of money because we have the original contingency, construction contingency, and then we also have the allowance contingency that was built into everybody's original contracts. And then there's the buyout savings for coming in under budget, so, the contingency is, for most changes we're tracking right now under contingency and just keeping the allowance for things that are 5,000 and under. So that's why it looks like, we've used up quite a bit, but we really still have a lot of money left. It's just different pots of money. Any questions on those?
Before you ask for other questions, if I could just let you know that we continue to have our owner, architect, construction manager meetings every other week. And I just need to mention that we now have a good friend, Joe, is attending those meetings as well, and that has been very helpful. I think you've been on, I don't know, you've been on roofs, you've been all over the place, yes. And also kind of the, I know you've met with Jeff, you've met with principals, so it's just been very good. So I just want to thank you for joining us. Questions? And thank you for coming to the board meeting at the last minute and saying that I'm aging. Anything else? Oh, thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
When will we see everybody again? At the end of the summer or nothing?
It's up to you. When you tell me to be here, I'll be here.
So we'll continue to assess progress. If there, of course, if there's anything major, we'll invite back and either at the beginning of the summer or right beginning of the fall, wherever. We'll continue to give names. So
Thank you.
thank you. Oh, Joe, you're leaving? No.
He did his thing.
We do thank you, though, for stepping up and taking this position. We are so grateful that you are here to represent our school district and, be a part of this,
My
so.
thought was, how was I gonna hang around here without getting arrested? Before. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe.
It's like in favor.
No, that's just.
Next up is me. And where did the clicker go? You have it?
Yeah.
I'll let you. So the next portion of our meeting is the district-wide safety public hearing. And just so you know that we do review this annually with our district-wide safety team. This must be adopted by September 1st. So tonight is the public hearing. Then there's a 30-day public comment period. The draft plan will go on our website. We'll be sending out Parent Square. You will have time at the next board meeting to, if you have any questions after this evening or as you're, reviewing the plan, we can talk about it again in the next board meeting if needed. And then this will be proposed for adoption in the second August meeting. And then Mrs. Rumsey is very experienced at entering these into the state ed portal. So the plan, as always, includes makeup of the district-wide safety team who you are appointing tonight, our policies for training and drills, how we communicate, some prevention and intervention strategies, and also resources that are available in the district. So just talking about resources and any of the changes, you do have an email with this. Any of the changes are in red. We really extensively reviewed this last year and made a number of changes, so there's not nearly as many changes this year. We continue to do PBIS, therapeutic crisis intervention, to have, a number of programs that we continue to assess. Second Step Positivity Project. Some things I just want to mention. So this year was our first year with campus safety monitors, in addition to school safety officers. That has worked very well, and we're in the interviewing process for the elementary campus safety monitors. So it's a very good addition to have both of those positions. Something else that you'll notice in here, we started using Raptor screening at the middle and high school, with the goal of doing it at the elementary. That has been very, very helpful during construction management. The Turner handles it with construction, but they show their badge, their license, and then any alerts are found on the system if there's an issue. And then we're going to continue to use that in the district outside of construction.
One of the things that we had discussed at the safety committee was that if they had gone through the screening process as a construction worker, they would have an indicator that would tell staff that they had been cleared. So it's a very visual situation where you know that that person has gone through clearance.
And everyone is right on top of that too. If for some reason someone has forgotten to wear that, everyone is right on top of that. So now everybody is remembering. Next. So there are proposed additional requirements for the plan. We're not going to learn until after July 31st from state ed if these are actual requirements, if we're beyond the proposal stage. We have included them in our plan, and many of them we have done already. So drills and training to be conducted in a trauma-informed, developmentally and age-appropriate manner. That's very important. Students and staff be informed when a school is conducting a drill, and families receive information about drills. This year, we started asking the principals to make sure parents knew if it was a drill, so that if a child was coming home, they would understand that, oh, it was a drill, if the child was talking. So these are now proposed requirements, but if you look at our plan, proposed or not, they're in there. Whether they're accepted or not, they're in there. So the next slide talks a little bit about the building level plans. Those are confidential. Our building teams have been working on the plans, and they're reviewed both by me and the safety specialist from BOCES, and they will be presented to you in an executive session later in the summer because they are confidential. And then again, entered into the business portal, shared with law enforcement so that they have the specifics of each building. And there are proposed requirements to the building level plans as well. And I will highlight those when we meet in executive session. And again, the building plans give specific details for how we respond in each of these situations. And staff get training in each of those situations at the beginning of the year, and also anytime we have a new staff member start. Some years back, that was an area we realized we needed improvement in with transition of staff. So now staff do the training at central office before they start in the building to make sure, and then the building does more specific to that building, but the overall training through Vector takes place prior for staff in the middle of the school year. I think that's it for the district-wide safety plan. Before we talk about this, I just wanted to give you a quick little update on summer programming. You do have summer programming by the numbers in front of you. I asked the coordinators to wait until today to try to get a feel for students. So overall at the elementary, we have 111 students who signed up. At this point in time, only 87 attending. Calls have been going out. We have heard some of the students are going to start next week. Same thing with the middle school, 65 enrolled, 40 attending. We're also hoping, if the heat lets up a little bit, that will help. And then you have the summer school programming at the secondary level. The numbers are here. At the end of the summer, Mike Costo and Heather Bratt will share a report with you that shows the breakdown of those specific numbers in the Edgenuity classes, as well as of the students who are taking these classes, how many passed, and also our regions data. So, any questions about summer programming?
So it looks as though we are prioritizing areas that have air conditioning or some sort of cooling system that's available within the buildings.
Yes.
So, I mean, I see that at the high school. I guess questions would be if there is available
At the elementary.
at the elementary.
So they've been prioritizing, classrooms on the first floor. So for example, the gym at Skype is very cool. They highlight areas where students can go to, and the good news is it, gets done at 11:30 before it gets very hot.
Right.
And then so the next thing is safety before we go on to mission, vision, beliefs. Do you have an update? Anything you want to share? That's fine. Any questions before we go on?
Preference, like, hit the light.
Oh.
That reminds me from Canada. Thank you very much. It's getting a little darker.
It's doing pretty well.
I can't.
Whoa, thank you.
One's good.
Okay.
Thank you.
So you have a copy of the mission, vision, beliefs, and commitments, a printed copy. They're also here as well, and we just wanted to share these again, see if there are any proposed changes in the mission, the vision, the beliefs, or the commitments, and then talk a little bit about some goals. So,
Any first, any language or content changes for the mission statement? It is currently the mission of the district, a partnership of schools, parents, and the community, is to prepare its students for success in tomorrow's world. The vision is purpose and plan for all. Those two things were recently kind of tweaked. Everybody okay with the language in those content? And beliefs and commitments. Comments, contents, concerns, changes.
I'll be honest, my overall concern isn't anything that's here. It's what we've been doing in comparison to what's here. I feel like I personally still love these. I feel like we've gotten away from it a little bit recently. Need to figure out how to better align what we're doing to these.
So to refocus, to sort of rein in and realign. SMART goals, something measurable, numeric, steps in the right direction.
Yeah, I think one of the things that we had talked about and reasons that we're reviewing this now is so that the development of any of the priorities that the superintendent has to meet these can be reviewed and then trickle down to the building level to stay focused and again, measurable, because it's very difficult for us to look at achievement and or success if we don't have a measurable goal to get to in the end. So I think Mr. Jackson's right, and I think that we need to refocus back in and see what we can do to try and make sure that not only does it start here, but as it trickles down, that we continue to reflect back to see where it works within these beliefs and commitments.
So we do have a process in place right now to align the budget goals, the budget allocations with these. Sometimes it's more effective than other times. So we've already talked about kind of refining that so that it's more vertically aligned. But just as Margaret said, we do want everything to sort of follow the same vision, right? And at our level, to be broader so that everyone can put a fine point on it using their own data, in my opinion. But I think we need to identify the areas that we want to pinpoint for growth this year.
If I may, I think both internal and external communications, how as a district, our format will collect data and then communicate that both internally to our districts and externally to our families and constituents on the outside. So we can define something that is measurable on those outcomes and hold ourselves accountable for it too, because I think everyone's doing great work. Sometimes gets lost in translation. Yeah.
So for example, parent participation in surveys or attendance at events, things like that, that are measurable and things that we can focus on, those types of things. You're thinking broader or?
I wouldn't say broader. I would say eventful. When there's eventful situations that happen, what is our process and procedure to communicate that internally and externally? Define that a little bit more and hone in on it.
So one of the words that we've used up a lot over the course of this past year is transparency and making sure that not only do we have an understanding of what's happening, that all of our stakeholders, as much as, is possible, has the same understanding. And I think that we have also communicated that throughout our meetings to ask, will there be communication going home? Is this going to be, a regular process for us to just, I think it's important for us to reflect on every single thing that we do and say, who needs to know this? And who are we including in this conversation? I just think that it should be a regular point of reflection to whatever we're doing, to always say, where do we need to go? Because that kind of puts us in a place where we are being a little bit more proactive than reactive, instead of, addressing situations after they've already happened, knowing that potential for issues might arise, that communication piece ahead of time is going to help us to not be in a place where we're constantly having to be reactive and or, after the fact, send out information. I just feel like all of these pieces should be things in our everyday life that we look at and say, okay, how does what I'm doing today line up with each one of these things?
So for example, that would, in my opinion, fit into the belief for a positive school climate.
Absolutely.
Yes.
I feel like there's definitely been some communication and perception that, it's not as transparent as we would like it for it to be.
Okay, so when we come to these points, we're gonna ask Ms. O'Shea to develop a measurable piece.
And then
Come back,
report back
yeah.
and get here. And look at, not in this circumstance, we might not have the specific data we're talking about, We have some survey data and some communication. But even with the other ones, whatever they are, I can come back with, here is our baseline and what we're talking about. Here is where we want to be in this discussion. And so here's some measurable goals to get there. Can we talk a little bit about some of the other areas and what are some of the measures? Because I mean, I have ideas as to what the measures are. So I'd like to hear your ideas. So, for example, our expectations, I mean, graduation rates. I'd also like to talk maybe about some interim measures like all students achieving proficiency and rating by grade. I mean, some things like that.
Being realistic about our demographics, I really strongly believe in growth scores at the elementary and middle school levels.
So the growth scores.
I mean, we have tools that can measure that.
Yeah.
We have it,
And I
if you-
think
and
they
we
would
have
be more
it here right
useful.
there.
And I think we have very much missed an opportunity the last few years, as we list up in the mission, a partnership of schools, parents, and the community. I brought it up, I'll bring it up again. As a parent, I have never felt more disconnected from children's education. Things should be so easily and readily available as far as what we are doing next, what they are working on. And because there's not papers coming home anymore, I can't get anything unless I basically beg for it.
I think that's a huge thing because, I mean, yes, we do all rely on our computers and our phones and stuff like that. But, I mean, a parent should be able to know what their child is doing in school and see in front of them. I mean, my kids are older, so when they were in elementary school, I saw their homework. I saw what they were doing. I saw it come home with a 95 or 75, you know what I mean? Like, so, and I was always aware, and also like the interim reports and stuff like that. Are those, like, do you get interim reports and?
Still, yes, I can always access the grades.
Right.
But to me, I'll be honest, I'm a little more proactive. I want to understand, what are they working on next? How do I prepare them for what they're working on next?
Like
What
their
are they
teaching,
doing?
like their teaching plan and stuff
Right.
like that.
How do I make sure that I'm providing my perspective on things that they're doing in social emotional learning that may differ from their teacher's perspective, so that we're a partnership, because I truly believe, no child is better off educated by a single human.
Right.
The more people and perspectives that they are, exposed to,
Mhm.
the better they become.
So,
like syllabus type.
Right,
Yeah,
so we talk about our curriculum gaps, right? We
Right.
talk
Right.
about horizontal and vertical alignment, like
Right.
where are we in communicating that to our parents so that they know and understand, these are the topics that will be covered in first grade. These are the topics that we cover in second grade, and what does that look like? And, I know that we do a good job of making sure that we have continuity. But I agree that maybe that's not communicated enough to our parents. Also, again, that's a welcoming thing to say, we want you involved in your child's education, and here's the things, the exciting pieces that we're gonna learn about. And I know that teachers oftentimes will send out a weekly recap, or they'll say a monthly, whatever this, but there's not a consistent expectation to do that and to have everybody do that. Understandably, there should be autonomy for each of our educators to be able to run their classrooms.
right.
But even just a broader scale, more umbrella type expectation to say, these are the things that we do in a grade level, and maybe different timelines, which we know are movable timelines and or benchmarks to say, by this point, we should have learned, and that way you could question to say, whatever the topic is, if it had been addressed or not addressed.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think at the secondary level with 6 through 12 schoology will be able to go back to schoology. that will help us in that area. I understand we don't have that at the elementary level. I think the consistent use of both I-ready math and to reading will get us to that place where teachers can more easily say, here's where we are. Here's where we're going. Doing a lot of work with that the summer and into the school year with a curriculum coach from BOSIN. So I can work with what you're talking about, you know, the feedback you're giving me and come up with some goals in that area too. And the why I like that this always happens now is because then we have a building leadership, we have administrative council first, followed by our building leadership team gathering with all 5 buildings, followed by the individual buildings working. So, and then followed by some summer PD, and there's still time to shape some of that. So this is helpful.
So technology-wise, on that same front, you mentioned Schoology for middle and high school, and elementary doesn't have that tool. But looking at it, like, what is that virtual folder that comes home and says, next month we're doing the Egyptian theme and starting Charlie Factory? Like, those are the things that I was used to with my first, not so much with the second, because of technology. Is there a technology platform that we currently have in our tools, not looking to outsource that by any means, but that gives parents that ability to look into that window?
But I mean, Schoology is capable and
Schoology is capable, so the discussion this year was moving back to 612 this year, meeting with elementary, many of them were using Google Classroom during, you know, COVID. Some of them still are, but then having that discussion with elementary and showing there's some interim steps that we're working with elementary. So for example, our standards-based report card, we're making sure that those standards are consistently mapped. So teachers will have that and can say, here is the standard we're working on, here's how we're working on it. There are platforms, and again, I'm just kind of relearning or learning some of this, but there are platforms in the I-ready math that I believe can communicate. I'm not certain yet. I need some time to get a little up to speed in that area. But I do have a call with I-ready math. And then Reading is a new iteration of their programming. And I think there's tools in that. I know there's tools in the I-ready software that we use. I'm not sure if it's consistently shared by grade levels to home.
Well, I was gonna say, I think the parent component in that is very limited. Also, just want to clarify, we're not asking the elementary teachers to learn a new platform.
No.
Just
No.
No, that's not what I'm saying.
an available resource, not
No.
used to use. It is available and we are able to, you know, potentially enable. I just say, not asking for a platform. If there
That's why I would like to become a little more familiar with the existing platforms that we are.
But maybe
rolling
even
out.
that work is to establish the same type of committee that we've just established for secondary to say, what is working for you? What do you currently use? And what can we help support? Because let's be honest, we're already spending that money. There's no reason for us to spend on anything else if we have something that we can streamline, get parents used to a platform that they are gonna have that continuum all the way through. And some teachers may be
They're the
ready and
experts.
willing
Right.
to, you know, want to jump into something like that. I just don't want to put up barriers for anybody who's not, knowing that there's a need for this piece of communication.
So part of the plan is, first of all, to, you know, we're doing the training with the secondary this summer. We met with secondary. The plan is to meet with elementary, and then to open up, first of all, Schoology as an option. Also, even in school tools, because we're going to that, there's a standards-based grade book that teachers can use in school tools that parents can then see at a broader level, not fine-tuned in Schoology. So that is all part of the planning process. I just can't say this is exactly where we are going with that, but we're aware of the tools and use them. So And I heard what you said too. We're not going to say, oh, here now, learn all of
No.
this too.
No, but I guess my point is there are some who may actually be interested and want to move in that direction and.
And that's where we were moving previously, and that's where we'll move with this as well. We did have on our platform that I know were not to be mentioned, that we did have the opening, right? We did have the availability for teachers to go farther if they wanted at the elementary. And we
Might be interesting.
We believe in efficiency and equity of resources.
I believe in a positive school climate, and some of the schools need to readjust and some buildings more than others.
So I'm hearing a lot of process through this conversation. You know, in terms of, so here's the processes, here's the outcomes we would like to see. I just kind of want some clarification of where you think that ties in with, so targets, scores. So as we talk about this, can we talk about that a little? I mean, so
I guess it's hard because the baseline that we have been provided is proficiency. Now, again, at the secondary level, it makes sense for us to use proficiency because that is the terminating factor of whether or not that kid has completed a course. But the growth model in the, K even 8 realm, I don't have a baseline to even really be able to reflect upon to know where a sensible target would be.
yeah, I'm not asking about
The number itself, no,
I'm
I
asking
understand.
about the
Yeah.
period. So K-8 growth and 9-12 proficiency.
I know what I can get my hands on, right? And so you try to think about things that are attainable and that we're not asking, to move mountains to get, but also I do believe that growth is a more relevant indicator for us as a board to look at, to know if, we do have a lot of transient students. We do have kids who are just moving in, moving out, and to not be able to see, those levels of grade level expectations, meeting proficiency or being on grade level doesn't mean a lot if they're coming in 3 levels below and they've grown 2 levels, but still are under. They're still falling into that piece where we're just not looking at the fact that they have achieved and they have,
By the
made
same,
progress.
by the same token, I want to make sure that because someone has reached proficiency, that they're not just then plateauing.
Yeah.
Right.
And all the focus is put on, it's got to be a balance.
So with growth, I mean, we have the broader level iReady growth data from the elementary and middle that you have, but then we also, but that's just how many students are on or above to, a year below, 2 to 3 below. We also have percentages of students meeting their goals. So, there are other pieces of information that we can merge together to get a better picture of growth outside of that broad.
Well, no, I'm like individual
Yeah.
growth scores per student. I know like each of my kids has both like a standard goal and a stretch goal.
Right.
For both ELA and math, and that, to me, that's what we should be, looking at both like, from a number of different angles as far as how kids are doing on their stretch goals and depending on availability and ease of getting the data, look at growth compared to number of minutes, growth compared to attendance, like start to understand more what moves the needle.
So what about the future ready knowledge and skills piece? I feel like that screams for some sort of a STEAM.
I think STEAM is important. I think it's important that when we're looking at curriculum, are we starting to delve into how does AI change the future of education? It's, not doing what we've always done, but make sure we're looking forward when we're also having those curriculum meetings to make sure we're staying relevant. And it's the skills that are going to translate, not the skills that are going to slowly fizzle out.
I mean, I
Just a little work.
I mean, I think it's important, you know, we have committed to this career exposure and education too. I think it's important for us to continue on with this. I think that our staff has fully embraced it, and I love that we have been seeing more from each of our buildings, including at the elementary level. The exposure pieces are just so critical, and to understand what skills they learn, how that translates into the real world. And with, you know, hopefully the upcoming graduation pathway adjustment measures, you know, we might be able to offer some more creative programming, not only at the secondary, but even to start focusing that in at the elementary level. One of and I don't need to go way back or like to date myself, but when you know, I was in elementary school, we had Odyssey of the Mind. We had you know, different programs that kind of encouraged our inquiry or inquisitive nature if we were bored in the classroom, because maybe we have reached that plateau, and to just have that you know, extra support to be able to look at different areas that you might be interested in, whether it's medical field or engineering or, you know, science, math, any of those things. The exposure is one thing, but then being able to translate that into like hands-on activities, I feel like we've gotten to the part where we've gotten the exposure. And I think, you know, if we can continue that momentum and try to push through with some support programming, it might just bring us probably to a next stage of that commitment.
I think a lot of last summer's like middle school programming that I saw, like honestly, that type of project-based learning, like those kids were having fun. They were enjoying being there. They were able to take things they learned and actually apply it to hands-on situations. Be honest, I was a little jealous. I couldn't send my kids because of camps and things along those lines, but you know, like that's the type of stuff I would love to see them do.
And I think along those lines, we have some of this great stuff happening, and we've talked about this for a couple of years now. Like, how do we look at our graduates, our recent graduates, and understand how to reset them up for success in, I hate to say it this way, but the real world. And in order to do that, we can all pat ourselves on the back and say, yeah, we're proficient and everything, but it really comes to some of those kids who are students who are now young adults, and did they learn what they needed to learn, and analyzing and getting that done. I know it's easier said than done. I'm just focusing on what's happening here, but I think that's really important for the evaluation of what we're doing here too.
And that leads right back to our vision, a purpose and a plan for all. You know, how do we measure that our kids are walking out the door with a purpose? And that kind of circles us back to years ago when we were initially established this, you know, what, 4 years ago? Not even sure, but how did that become measurable within, you know, the overarching umbrella of what the board is and what our vision is versus what a kid walks out with and how
Well,
they
and
view it.
I was gonna say, we also want to make sure that they have the tools to support their purpose and their plan when they leave here.
Absolutely.
So I think there's sort of all intertwined. And this year, we're a little more fiscally stable than we have been. Thank you. I know. Hopefully, the foundation aid study will come back, and in a way that doesn't impact us. And then that sets us up to be able to fund these priorities and to do more and go deeper and really move the needle. So we hope for that. So Ms. O'Shea, you have some work to do.
Also important to mention that I don't know that, you know, at least for me anyway, I'm not saying do extra or add this or add that. I'm just saying like, what are we doing and how can we incorporate some of the thoughts and ideas that we have into our everyday work, things that we're already doing? Like how do we maybe just change the conversation in the classroom or in faculty meetings to meet the needs and expectations of having preparing our students for success, using all of these things.
I mean, I would say these conversations do happen when we move to different areas. So for example, our Smithsonian Science Kits, that's the future ready knowledge and skills. To be more in-depth and more communicated too. But so we do have the discussions around it. So we can go deeper in the discussions and really each time. And that is what Nadia said during budget season. We say, where does this fit in? We meet with all the BLTs and say, where does this fit in? It's also in their plan to make the funding fine-tuned and go deeper. So. Okay, so when would you? What are your thoughts about timeline and steps? August.
First August meeting? Good with that?
When are your,
When are your next meetings?
and I think it's important for us to make sure we
Yeah.
stay within the timeline of you need.
Well, for my
Yeah,
next
right.
that meeting is there in July, and that's to, because we moved the timeline, up, which makes more sense versus starting plans. So I have enough, the beliefs and commitments I was saying, topics of conversation, what to look at. I mean, that's good for the next meeting. I need to gather some data, some baselines. We have individual data that each of the teams will be looking at, but this is more of a putting everything together. Here's elementary, here's King, here's second. But that'll August will work.
And I just want to mention, at least on, in my perspective, the updates that we have been provided through the data, the monthly data that we have been provided from the principals. I enjoy that. I
Absolutely.
encourage that to continue. Again, that's just like.
Some of us like data.
So I just would ask that we continue that. I don't know,
Plan
obviously,
is to
yeah.
continue. Yeah.
Just wanted to mention.
Yeah, no, that's,
Keep it going.
keep it going. Transparency.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anything more? Smacky, are you sure? Still?
I'm sure.
Can I just also, sorry, Ramsey's looking at me. So I think that
Need to write down.
we had a little bit of a conversation about positive school climate and culture. I think also, don't want to forget that we have a lot of folks who work for us and, we're a very large employer within the district, and not to forget, that there are needs. This is a tough job. This is a tough, education right now is a very difficult place to be able to walk in the door and feel every single day that you have walked out and had a great day. It's very difficult. There are a lot of challenges. We continue to ask more and more. And I just want to make sure that we have plans in place to have conversations with our folks and visit with them to make sure that they feel supported and that there's areas within the building that they can, kind of decompress within the school day. I know that we had done this, in prior years, but I think even just another refocus on potential check-ins or expectations of check-ins to just kind of make sure that we have the temperature of what our climate is and what the environment is for each of our buildings. Again, high level stuff here at this. It's just, setting an expectation that we would like to see, a plan in place. My own opinion.
Well, and also that they understand that we are here to support them and what they're doing. And, it's a collaborative effort on all of our parts to make this happen for our kids. And, we're not asking them to do anything that they don't want to do. And if, they don't feel supported and they don't feel like they're getting it, I mean, we would like to, I'm just saying it maybe personally for me, but like, I feel like sometimes, they at the lower levels, maybe don't feel as supported by the board as they think they should be. And I would like the communication to be both ways between the board and, not just the building leaders, but the teachers and things like that, to know that, we are listening.
Working within the confines of the.
Absolutely,
Chain.
absolutely.
So
Chain of command, everything, that's not what I'm saying. I'm not saying
I
that.
know what you're saying, but
I'm saying that
Go
all the way down,
Down.
up and down, not just stop at one level that, what's being offered
So
or
we
what we
did,
can offer.
we did a couple of visits, recently over the course of the last, month or two within each of the buildings. And one of the things that we had established, several years ago was a contact for each of the buildings as far as like a board representative. I don't know if that's something that we would be interested in doing again or revisiting. One of the difficulties that I think that we had and the reason that we went away from it is that there was a very inconsistent expectation, I think. There was not well communicated what your role is as a board member to be a liaison to a specific building. And, certainly this would be something that we would have to have a conversation with the superintendent about. But that's an option, but we would have to be very explicit in what that means
Yeah,
and what that would entail. In my experience as a liaison, I made a priority to attend events at that school. And I made a priority to pop into a PTA meeting or PTO meeting when it was available, not every month, but also if there was something specific happening, they would invite me and I would attend those meetings. More to just be a face, not the complaint or comment department, because that's not our role.
no,
But to be a face in the buildings. And I know as parents, you guys are, seeing within, the areas that your kids attend. But just to be a support for each of the buildings to know that there is access to exposure to, somebody on the board. So put it out there.
I mean, I wasn't on the board when you did that. I did attend some of the meetings though, that we did at the buildings. I guess what I'm saying is that within the constraints or whatever of the chain of command, I am not in any way saying that I'm gonna personally, I want personally to talk to every single person. That is not what I'm asking at all. I'm just saying that I just, sometimes the message doesn't get out there as much as, and I think just going based on a couple of events that may or may not have just happened recently with the perception of the board is that people don't think that we're here to support the school system and they think we're here for our own good and, we're here just to get our vision or our views across. And that is not what we're here for. I mean, at least not me. I don't know. I didn't choose to come and, spend 2 nights a month here for a couple of hours and then also to attend events and stuff like that. I'm not doing it for my own good. I'm doing it so that the school system and everybody in the school system knows that being a part of the board is to support the school system.
So each building, I would imagine, has different needs or desires about their interaction level with the board.
Absolutely.
You have a conversation at the admin council meeting to see what their thoughts are about how they would feel best supported, what we could do as a body to make sure that they understand them.
Yeah, and I can also ask, under the old model, what did they feel that worked really well?
Right.
And what were some of the things that
Right.
we might want to see enhanced in that type of model too, just to, we still have a number of principles here that.
Right.
Right.
For them, so.
I just want to be very specific that if that is something that they are interested in pursuing, that we need to make sure that we come to an agreement of what that does mean, because again, the reason that we stopped doing it was because it was not being,
It's still the communication and decision making still flows,
yes.
a different way,
Yes.
so it's, yes.
And I don't think it's anything to say that like we're making decisions out there, or we want to make a decision for, you know, this teacher opposed to this teacher or whatever. I think it's just more of the perception of what do they want us to do for them to help
Part
them
of the
more.
community too, and we want to be a supportive part of the community. in
Exactly.
Whatever way they need that support.
And I know, so I know this was an aberration, but I do strongly believe that, you know, the board has been seen as supportive for, you know, quite a while, you know, and through many different occasions, so. And, you know, I make sure to, when I'm communicating directly, people with that. So,
I 100% know that you do.
So.
I think it's just an opportunity for us to have the conversation,
Absolutely.
knowing that there is a little bit of,
It's a good time.
It's a perfect time.
You hear, you listen. What can we do?
It comes down a little bit to like when the principal walks in the room, oh no, someone's in trouble. No, sometimes the principal's there just to see what's going on.
like,
Right.
Yeah.
I know.
Okay,
I have to have Mary Wright call and say, hey, listen, nothing's wrong.
Nothing's wrong, but can you call Peggy?
Yeah, or don't get alarmed, Peg's just coming to say hi.
So coming around the table now is a list of the proposed meeting dates for this coming year, this year. I guess we're in it now. Would you just take a quick look at it and
Pass them this way. Are there any extra?
Oh, sorry.
I'll read.
take a quick look and let us know if you know for a fact that you will not be able to make any of these. If we have obviously we do this whole, and we'll tweak as needed. But just to, a quick overview, one meeting in December because of the holidays, one meeting in February because of the break, one meeting in June. I know the August 14th poll that went out, 2 folks couldn't attend. Is anyone else? There were some unsures or get back to yous. You're good? Good?
For
August 14th.
I'm an unsure.
Still unsure?
Yeah.
To get your letters in the mail so we can.
I'm good on the 14th, but if you move it to the 21st, I am not.
Okay.
I'll be crying.
Mr. Jackson,
Yeah.
we're away.
Yeah, I'm not available.
So we have a quorum.
we do.
But don't worry, I'll let you know my opinions.
I mean, I'm like 80% sure that I could be here if he gets the move-in date of the 17th.
there are no issues with it. I may shut the 24th now if I can't get back in time, but we should still have a forum, right? July 20th for the next one.
Yeah, the 24th. It was the 14th that
Okay.
we're a little concerned about and just really want to, we have some time. Like to, at the next board meeting, be able to say these are our meeting dates, but the summer dates, because of different things, we need to know those even sooner than the next meeting. So,
Can I ask, have we reviewed our, this year's district calendar for events to see if there's any that might?
so why it's good to have it soon is because we say, please avoid these days for events.
Yes, I know that we say that, but there are typically situations where there's an expectation, we always have it on this week, and so.
No, we, this should work in terms of concerts and that. But it will be easier once we have them. Make sure, because our district calendar from the schools, they're populating it now. So it's
Right.
not-
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's
So,
the deadline for
I
the
just mean like
calendar?
sometimes you have to apply for the play for a certain week, I don't know.
No, I don't know about the play. It's the middle of August.
So if we can, confirm the summer dates, which it's sounding like we'll have a forum, and then, be ready to approve these at the next.
The next.
The next
Mhm.
meeting. So,
Agree on these dates, please, Sony? Agree to approve the full calendar at the 24th meeting? Renee, if you end up not being able to make it, just let me know what your good and bad dates are. I mean, you have a very challenging calendar.
Yeah, I'll let you know for sure.
So I responded to, I'm not gonna be at the 24th.
You're not at the 24th, so that's,
Somebody sent the email or text.
yeah, that's why we're checking
Yeah.
to see if there'll still be a quorum because you're not, Rick's not.
and Renee may not be.
I'm
Everyone else, I'll just pick you up.
in Rochester, so as long as there's nothing crazy going on, I should be able to get back. But there is always something happening on the thruway in July, so.
Okay,
We are more concerned about your safety.
right. The 24th, the 14th, and the 28th are agreed upon. Okay, good talk. For that. Any Board of Ed discussion of agenda items?
What were they again? No, I'm kidding.
They would like to discuss something later.
Now you have been waiting very patiently, so we do have.
Sorry.
They're not usually this long. but-
I know, I am so sorry.
So I'm very happy to say that Caitlin Hennessy is here. She is going to be special education teacher at Hayes High School. And Caitlin is well-known and loved by the high school already because she did her student teaching here. And so we're so happy she's here.
Congratulations.
We basically got a private audience.
I know, right?
It's great. I'm super happy to be here. I had the most amazing time student teaching, and there was no question about where I wanted to work afterwards. So
Oh, very nice.
Thank
Very
you.
nice.
Welcome. So that we're going to consider that community discussion of agenda item. Anyone else in the community? Can we have a motion to designate consent agenda that the Board of Education adopts the following resolution of the July 10th, 2024 agenda, items 6A through B and 7A through O.
I'll make a motion.
Thank you.
I'll second it.
Thank you.
Mrs. Gendron, Mrs. Giller,
Yes.
Mr. Jackson,
Yes.
Mrs. Snyder,
Yes.
Gendron,
Yes.
Ms. Paredes,
Yes.
Mr. Gerose,
Yes.
Mrs. Carey.
Yes.
Congratulations.
Now it's
Now it's official.
tend to get ahead of myself when I get excited. Comments from the board about any items not on the agenda tonight? No? Comments, statements, and questions from the audience, anything not on the agenda tonight? You'll note that the first read of of policy 6830, 7100, I should tell you what they are. Expense reimbursement, 7100 is facilities planning, 8115 is pesticides and pest management, 8220 is buildings and grounds maintenance and inspection. Haven't done tonight's agenda. Dates for future meetings are July 24th, August 14th, and August 28th. July 24th will also be here at the high school due to plastic work.
And we'll check out the temperature 3 hours early.
And with that, can I get a motion to enter into executive session at 7:38 PM to discuss matters leading to the appointment, employment, promotion, demotion, discipline, suspension, dismissal, or removal of a particular person or corporation, and to discuss policy 9206.
Make a motion.
I'll second.
Thank you, thank you.
Mrs. Giller,
Yes.
Yes.
Mrs. Snyder,
Yes.
Gendron,
Yes.
Ms. Paredes,
Yes.
Mr. Gerose,
Yes.
Mrs. Carey.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, everyone, for coming.
Thank you.
Was other room
Welcome.
too?